Good people, today I want us to discuss a very different topic. We've been discussing about wars and conflicts in the Horn of Africa. But today I want to discuss something about combat. And the topic I want to discuss is known as combat, readiness, and the will to fight. Ladies and gentlemen, these two things are not synonymous. Why? We know from recent history that the United States of America trained and equipped a very large army in Afghanistan. But that army in Afghanistan could not stand the onslaught by the Taliban forces. Why? Because there is something they were lacking. And this is what we call the will to fight. The will to fight is influenced by leadership and command. Now, if you look at the entire Horn of Africa, there are two countries with very large armies. That is, one is Ethiopia, the other one is Sudan. But if you look at those countries, many a times they have conflicts. Apart from the ongoing conflict between the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front and the Ethiopian National Defense Forces, there are other smaller conflicts involving insurgent groups like the Oromo Liberation Front, the Benishangul Liberation Front, the Ogaden National Liberation Front, and myriad other groups that operate in other parts of Ethiopia. Now, why are these armies? That is, if you go to Sudan also, you will find that Sudan has a lot of conflict. Either you're having conflict in Darfur, South and North Darfur, you're having conflict in Eastern Sudan, yet the country with a very large force, and even another force they call the Rapid Deployment Force, which was initially known as the Janjaweed. With all these forces, Sudan has not been able to completely decimate rebel groups and armed insurgent groups in many parts of the country. Now, why? Because there is what we call the morale or the collective morale of combatants to fight. The will to fight is a disposition and a decision to fight by a soldier. And when a soldier decides to fight, he also decides to persevere and stand his ground when required. And soldiers will make decisions to fight or not based on their own personal or their own unit morale. And when I talk about unit, I'm talking about the smallest unit, that is the section. In paramilitary and military forces, we have got the smallest section unit known as the section, which has 9 people commanded mainly by a corporal or a lance corporal. If a unit has cohesion and discipline, if the leader is brave, if the soldiers understand why they are fighting, that is the doctrine. They know that we are fighting because we have a reason. We have a reason to defend our country. We have a reason to fight for our rights. We have a reason to defend our territory. Then that personal or the collective will by all the soldiers, starting from the personal decision to fight, it coalesces in what you call the unit will, the collective will of the unit to fight. Now, and those are now what we call the vital lessons of leadership and command. If you look around the greater Horn of Africa, we can see from experience that the country where the defense forces exhibit the highest quotient of the will to fight is the Rwanda Defense Forces. The Rwanda Defense Forces have been tested, have been tried, tested, and proven in Central African Republic, in Darfur, in parts of Southern Sudan, and Mozambique. The other defense group or defense force which has a lot of will to fight, which displays high discipline and collective will to fight, is the Kenya Defense Forces. The Kenya Defense Forces in 2012 decided on their own that they will go to Somalia and decapitate the source of livelihood and the source of command of the Al-Shabaab militants and terrorists. And they did so. They had the first amphibian landing from the sea onto the beach and attacking using the arrowhead formation. They were able to attack and capture Kismayu from the terrorists. Now, this will, collective will to fight, is what now distinguishes real armies and armies that are still evolving. And when you see large armies being unable to defeat insurgent groups, it simply means that there is a failure, what you call the collective failure of leadership and command to inspire morale, to train their soldiers and infuse doctrine and tell them that you must fight for these reasons. Soldiers should not worry about what other people are saying. Soldiers should not be worried about what politicians and activists are saying. The political cost of a war is a matter for diplomats and politicians, not for soldiers in the field. So these are things I would have wanted people to understand, because I have seen a lot of people asking, why is the large Ethiopian National Defense Forces unable to defeat a small outfit like the Tigray People's Liberation Front? I hope I've been able to discharge that obligation and answer your question well. But if you have any further queries, you can always raise them and put them on the comment section, and I will respond.